My presentation is on W.E.B. Du Bois. William Edward Burghardt was born on February 23rd, 1868 in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, to Alfred and Mary Sylvania. William's father left when he was really young, and so William's mother had to support her family, and she received some assistance from her brother, but mostly from neighbors. And she experienced a stroke in 1880s, and she died in 1885. William always knew that he wanted to attend college, so he relied on money donated by his neighbors, and he attended Fisk University, which was a historically black college, and it was in Nashville, Tennessee. While he was at college there, it was his first experience with racism. He encompassed the Jim Crow laws, bigotry, and lynching. After receiving a bachelor's degree from Fisk, he attended Harvard College from 1888 to 1890. In 1890, Du Bois was awarded his second bachelor's degree in history. In 1892, he received a fellowship from the John F. Slater Fund for the education of freed men to attend the University of Berlin for graduate work. As a student there, he traveled extensively throughout Europe, and after returning from Europe, he completed his graduate studies, and in 1895, he became the first African American to earn a PhD from Harvard University. In 1894, he accepted a teaching job at the Wilberforce University in Ohio. While he was at Wilberforce, he married Nina Gomer, which was one of his students. After 2 years there, he accepted a one-year research job from the University of Pennsylvania as an assistant in sociology. He performed sociological research, which became the foundation of his renowned study, the Philadelphia Negro. And this was the first case study of a black community, and it really hit home with a lot of people, and it was really interesting that it was the first case of a black community, and no one had ever really studied them, and he published some really remarkable things that people didn't know. He also published The Strivings of the Negro People, and this was his first work aimed at the general public, and he enlarged on his thesis that African Americans should embrace their heritage. In an effort to portray the genius and humanity of the black race, he published The Souls of Black Folk. And this was a collection of 14 essays, and it was published in 1903. He adamantly opposed the idea of biological white superiority, and he vocally supported women's rights. And this led him to write his essay, A Litany at Atlanta, and it asserted that the riots demonstrated at the Atlanta Compromise were a failure, because despite upholding their end of the bargain, the blacks had failed to receive legal justice. And this was something that he felt really strongly about, and he writes about this numerous times in his writings. And he became the founder of the General Secretary of the Niagara Movement. And this was an African-American protest group, and it consisted of scholars and professionals. He was also among the founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, also known as the NAACP. And from 1910 to 1934, he served as the Director of Publicity and Researcher, a member of the Board of Directors, and an editor of their monthly magazine, The Crisis. And while working for the magazine, he often published numerous sarcastic articles that were directly aimed at white Americans, but they also served as a source of information and pride to the African Americans. He always considered himself a socialist, and he attended many peace conferences, and he traveled all around the world, including places like China and Ghana and Russia. He was also active in behalf of the Pan-Africanism and was concerned with the conditions of people of African descent wherever they lived. He organized a series of Pan-African congresses around the world, and those congresses were held in 1919, 1921, 1923, and 1927. They consisted of intellectuals from Africa, West Indies, and the United States, and he really wanted to get the opinions from everywhere and let everyone know really what was going on of the conditions of African Americans. He fought for the resolutions condemning colonialism and called for alleviation of oppression of Africans. And these motions were passed, but little concrete action was taken. And his final Pan-African gesture was to take up citizenship in Ghana in 1961 at the request of the president, and he began work as the director of the Encyclopedia Africana. Du Bois' most lasting contributions are definitely in his writings. He was a poet, a playwright, a novelist, an essayist, a sociologist, historian, and journalist. He wrote 21 books, edited 15 books, and published over 100 essays and articles. He served as a professor, economist, chairman, and so much more. He founded Phylon, which was a social science quarterly, and perhaps his most significant historical work was a detailed work of the African Americans in American society, specifically during the Reconstruction period, and this book was widely criticized, yet even today it still remains as one of the best sources of information during that time. He received many honorary degrees and was a fellow and life member of the American Association for the Advancement of Science and a member of the National Institute of Arts and Letters. He was the outstanding African American intellectual of his period in America. He's widely considered one of the most important scholars of his generation. He still influences researchers, professors of sociology, and professors of race relations in schools all over America. His mixture of scholarship, protest activity, and polemics were inseparable and just consumed his life. All of his efforts were geared toward gaining equal treatment for black people in a world dominated by whites. W.E.B. Du Bois died on August 27, 1963 at the age of 95 in Accra, Ghana, while he was working on the encyclopedia for the Africana.